In TV and film, what's cool is like there is a moment when you're doing it where it clicks and you think, oh, that's it. Oh, that was cool. And then you move on. Yeah. And sometimes you finish a scene and you're like, I'm really gonna miss this. Mm-hmm. Happens a lot in shrinking, where you finish a scene and it's like, gosh, I'm not gonna do that again, huh? I remember on Ugly Betty, there was a scene that America and I had that was so fun and so funny that when we finished and everyone moved on and moved to another part of the set, we did it again. We said, you want to do it one more time? Oh my God. Nobody was around, we just did it one more time.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Michael Urie is an actor. He sat down with me on the Upper West Side of Manhattan to talk about the work.
When you get a new role, is there a typical way that you like to begin your preparation process?
No. I think the short answer is no. There is not a typical way. I do always, I like a paper copy. I like of a script. Even though these days that's rarer and rare. I used to be able to get my agents to send me them. They don't do that anymore. So now I go to Staples and print it out or whatever. But start with the paper copy and I highlight and write and da. But there's no beyond that. There's not a specific way. For the last probably 10, 12 years, I have a pretty strict rule that I don't like to ever carry a script in a rehearsal or on a set. So having the words in my brain has become probably the closest thing to a ritual for the beginnings of learning a part or learning a character. I don't want to be burdened by the words at all. And that started when I was doing a solo play. I did this solo play called Buyer and Seller, in which I was a narrator, and then I also played multiple characters that would talk to themselves. It was more of a guy who could tell a really great anecdote and would become the characters, as opposed to a strict, I didn't change clothes or anything. I would just sort of do all these. But I realized, I was early on, I thought, I can't. The script will be nothing but a burden if I'm holding it. So I actually, for that, when I was learning it, I had music stands and I had the script sort of played out in front of me. But I think having the words be second nature became the most important thing, and then I was able to just follow impulses as they came. Yeah. Yes, have plans. Yes, have ideas. Maybe even a couple of maybe even a few benchmarks along the way of things I would try to hit. Moments of, maybe there's something funny here, or maybe there's a surprise here, but unencumbered by the words. Yeah. And so that if the words aren't there, it's because of something new, because of some kind of discovery. Yeah.
And then you welcome that too, it sounds like.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then it's okay, what's going on here? And I find the more you know, the more that it's second nature, the more that the questions come up. Because if you're, I find the better the writing is, and I don't like to judge writing, especially once I've got the job, but the better the writing is, the easier it is to remember. Yeah. It just, once you know what you're, think about Shakespeare. Once you know what it is you're saying, there becomes no other way to say it. Yeah. And that's true whether it's TV or the classics. And I learned this when we were doing Torch Song. I did the
I was just going to say, you should tell that story now, because it's about this.
Oh, okay.
But go ahead, I'm sorry.
You already know this one. Okay. We
Yeah.
were doing Torch Song, the revival on Broadway. Well, first we did it off Broadway, and Harvey Fierstein, who wrote it, he took what was a 4.5-hour play and he turned it into a brisk 3-hour play by cutting a lot of stuff. Yeah. And we would be in rehearsal, and I, like I said, I didn't carry a script. I knew the words. I would occasionally have to ask. Something new happened. I would forget something.
Yeah.
But in that particular play, I would get hung up in the same moments over and over again, and I would not be able to remember the next line. And I started to get really frustrated because obviously it's good writing.
Yeah.
In the past when that's happened, it's been something's wrong with the writing, and I can like go to the writer and be like, I think there's something wrong here, and they would say, I agree, or well, what, like, and it would be like pretty easy negotiation usually. And in like a movie or a TV show or even like a new play, writers are often very open to things like that. But with Harvey, this play was old, and Harvey was around, but Harvey was a different guy, and he admitted it. He was the first to say, I'm not the guy who wrote this. That's a different guy. He said, I didn't rewrite anything, I just edited. I went through and I edited things that I felt like we didn't need anymore. And he had a really great sort of mantra that he would say, that he said it anecdotally, but you could feel it was a warning. and I adore him. And there is, as far as like, I've been able to work with some legends, but in the theater, that guy's a legend. And he understands every facet of the theater. And he said, if an actor says to me, my character wouldn't say this, I'll say to the actor, then you're playing the wrong character. So that was in my brain. And I didn't want to say my character wouldn't say this. And I didn't feel that. It was more just, why am I saying this now? And what we realized every time we would get hung up on something, I couldn't remember the line, or if Moises, our director, was like wanting subtext or missing something, or saying there's something missing here, and we'd say, well, we don't know what this is what we've got. We realized it was a cut. And we could go back to the original text, see what was cut, and sometimes that would solve it. We'd say, oh, this is what's missing, and now I can play that. And I don't need these words. I can just play what was missing. Sometimes we would say, well, maybe we should ask Harvey to put that back. And sometimes he would, and sometimes he'd say, no! And then we had to figure out how to get there. But that was
only comes about when you're seeped in the text yourself, not reading, because there is a difference there, right? I mean, you have to. It's in your body.
Totally. And when you have been able to let go. I guess that's exactly what you just said. It's like when you are able to let go, because you're not thinking about the words or worried about the words. Then the walls are just, you can't pass them until you solve the problem. And it's interesting that you say when you're not reading it, because we spend a lot of time around a table in theater rehearsals, and especially in new play development, so much of it is reading. And I remember when I first got into theater, when I first got out of school, one of my first jobs was with Austin Pendleton, who we were talking about before we started rolling. And he did this thing that I never seen anybody do. He wasn't, this was before I tried to be off book on day one, but he was definitely not off book. And he didn't even take his script home.
Wow.
He hid it in the set.
Wow.
He hid it in a drawer.
Whoa.
Which I thought was really interesting. And he was entirely impulsive.
Wow.
And we spent a lot of time around a table, and it was very conversational play. Not a lot happened. It was a lot of talking, and mostly it was him talking. And I remember at one point he pointed out that we'd hit a wall in rehearsal because we were just at a table for so long. We spent so long at a table, and he said, this is a different skill. And we're all good at this skill because of the culture of readings, because all new play development is spent around a table or at music stands in reading. And that's a different skill. It's sort of like
Yeah.
It's like the difference between, well, I mean, kind of the difference between like acting on camera and acting for the theater. It's like two different skills kind of, but I always think of auditioning as a totally different skill from actually performing. And like the period of time you have to like prepare something, and like you're kind of expected to be off book for an audition, and yet in the theater, you know, you have a month at least, usually a solid month before anyone watches it. In TV, sometimes, you know, like you really should be completely baked by the time you get there. But in the theater, so the audition is both showing I can do it on opening night, but I'm also going to be great for you in rehearsal.
Right.
You know, like if you need me to change anything, I'll be able to do that too. So you have to like spin a bunch of different plates.
Yeah. I mean, we have to take this a step further and talk about how people on film have this mentality that is pervasive, it seems like, of like, oh, I don't memorize. I have it kind of memorized because I want to have that spontaneous feeling in front of the camera.
Right.
And you're making me think now, and I think I was led toward this from talking to actors for so long and hearing this, that the DNA of you on camera being off book from day one, and that person who's very good but is not off book and is like kind of pulling, you're getting by, and it seems spontaneous and it seems alive. Yeah. But there's not a depth there because you don't know what you're saying actually. Yeah. You just don't look like you're saying lines. That's great. You've avoided that. Yes. Congratulations. Yes. But when it goes in you and it's coming out because you know what you're saying, it adds up to a different thing. I think this is partly why a lot of things suck right now. Really. I think it's like there's this mentality that like there's even like earpieces are prevalent. Right. And this is that kind of thing where it's like, oh no, it's fed to me. So it's spontaneous and but what is that adding up to? Right.
When you really think about it, people are always, you know, when you do a talk back after a play or, you know, a Q&A, how did you learn all those lines? That's like the number one thing you hear from people who aren't in the business. How did you learn all those lines? That's the easiest part. It's the easiest part of what we do. How did you learn the directions to work? How did you like eventually like figure out how to get to work every day? You just, you know, you stop using the GPS. You stop looking at the map. Eventually you don't need it anymore. Just like,
how do you know all your nieces and nephews' names?
Yes. You just do it.
Yeah. But it almost feels like there's this fear that that's going to be hard to do. And then it's going to lead to this stilted thing because it's in my body. Like you know what I mean? I guess it's that. It's like it's this fear. Most of this stuff comes from fear, right? I don't want to learn it all because but you're not doing the other work then after that. That needs to be done. Right. I think if I was directing a play, I don't think I would direct another play because they wouldn't let me because I would insist that everybody be off book on day one.
I know.
Everybody. Yeah. What are we doing? I'm not going to stand around and watch you with the script in your hand. Right. Going back, like
this is such a waste of my time. Yeah. Totally. I directed a play a couple years ago, and I had a really wonderful experience. But I kind of said that. I kind of said we need to be off book on the first day, and maybe I didn't say it clearly enough. And I love these actors, and we ended up making a really wonderful play, but they weren't. Yeah. They definitely weren't. And I had to forgive them immediately when I realized, oh, they didn't do that thing. Yeah. I had to sort of say, I guess I wasn't clear, or maybe that wasn't fair of me to ask, but they definitely weren't off book. Mm-hmm. And I think that maybe there was even a moment where they tried to be, and I was like, oh no, you don't do this. Sorry, pick up the script. This is way worse. Yeah. This is way worse.
That I guess that is worse. Is there any though drawback that you've found, and it's not been your whole career that you've done this. Right. So when you are off book before any kind of blocking has happened. Right. when people want to justify not being off book, that's what they say. Oh, well, I want to get it blocked out first.
And I can't remember until it's in my body.
That.
That's what a lot of people say. And maybe that's true. But I think that is also like kind of an excuse. I think that's kind of, an excuse. Yeah, of course, it is easier to remember something physically. And once you have something in your physical body, it becomes that second nature, and that you do. I mean, you think about things in as a piece. I do this physically. I do this with my voice. I say these words, and I feel this way, and they all become the same thing. Especially in a long run of a play, they become muscle memory. But no, ultimately, like
you can adapt. You can adapt.
You can adapt.
You can change.
You forget your lines in a moment, but they'll come right back. There's a difference between knowing all the words. It's like knowing what they are, and knowing what they mean, and then meaning them when you say them, but not being married to the way in which you say them. You just have to mean it.
That's well said, yes.
And that could be, I'm doing this play with Sutton Foster right now, and she is not married to a single line reading. And we do this show 8 times a week, and sometimes she'll say a line one way for 3 weeks, and then suddenly it's different. And it doesn't mean she doesn't mean it anymore, or it doesn't make the audience laugh anymore. It just comes out differently, and and I do that too. I mean, she's really free. She's one of the freest people I've ever worked with on stage. But
how do you not let the seduction of the audience laughing at a certain way you do it infect that?
It's a great question, because you get so tied to that.
Yeah.
You get so addicted to the way that they respond to a laugh that you're afraid. There's actually something in the play. There's a moment in the play where I have a take on a line that is.
I saw it last week.
You did?
Yes,
okay,
I did.
So maybe you'll remember this part. There's a part where in the second act where Lady Larkin has been disguised as a boy, and then she comes in to get advice from Princess Winifred.
Yeah.
And she's like, "You gotta go. No, you gotta go back and tell him you love him." And she sends Lady Larkin out, and she's like, "Thank you, Princess. I don't know how to thank you." And she says, "If it's a girl, I'm gonna name her Fred." And it gets a titter.
Yeah.
Because we spent the end of the first act. There's a whole song about how I'm in love with a girl named Fred.
Yeah.
And it's cute for us.
Yeah.
But gender is a very different thing now than it was in 1959 or in 1996 when it was revived on Broadway last. And so my line after she says, "If it's a girl, I'm going to name her Fred," is, "What if it's a boy?" Which I think it's been since 1959. And it's meant to be this guileless question that this, person we know isn't the brightest bulb in the bunch, And suddenly he says this thing, and it's, oh my gosh, what an adorable observation. Yeah. But I thought in 2024 that there could be more to that than just him not understanding how, a boy can't be named Fred because that's Fred. And Fred's not a boy's name.
Yeah.
But what if he realizes, oh no, Fred's usually a boy's name, and what if he's a little bit above it? So he says it kind of joking as an intentional, he's ahead of it, which usually you try to avoid in comedy. But I thought, what if he was a little bit ahead of it?
Yeah.
And it could be something that they share together as a joke, as a laugh. And then I sort of added this moment of, but wait, what if it is he kind of play both.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, it's happened a couple of times, and I have to knock on wood because it's just a really delicate.
Yeah.
It's a really delicate area where the timing all has to be kind of perfect for it to work, and I'll put a pin in the idea. I want to put a pin in and cut back because I think you'll find this interesting. The idea of my laugh or her laugh or put a pin in that because but it's very delicate, and we all have to play it exactly right for us for the laughs to all work. But if Nikki, as Lady Larkin, if when she says, if it's a girl, I'm going to name her Fred, if the audience laughs at that more than just a little bit, if it's sort of like, what? And it's usually like a Wednesday matinee crowd.
What are you trying to say? I'm joking.
If it's an older crowd, if it's a crowd of like old ladies and they find that really funny, then the next part doesn't work as well.
Right.
Or maybe doesn't work at all.
Right.
And that's happened a couple of times where they love that and they don't love the next thing as much.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to Sutton one day after the show, or maybe before that moment, I was like, oh, hey, I've been thinking, just so you know, if they ever if it's a girl, I'm going to name her Fred, more than usual, I might just play dumb on what if it's a boy and see how that plays. Mm-hmm. She was like, great, go for it. And of course, I know I didn't need to say that to her because she will go along with absolutely anything. Yeah. And so I didn't need to warn her. Yeah. It was more for myself. Yeah. Just to say it out loud so that if I ever did it, I wouldn't be scared of it. And I haven't done it. Mm. It's never happened. Mm. But it's in there. Mm-hmm. And there is a part of me that's afraid. That is a laugh that I'm afraid of every night.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. I get a little bit nervous every night. Yeah. What's it going to be like?
Yeah.
But I also think to go to the pin, 2 pins, because I have an Austin Pendleton pin. Uh-huh. Something that he said to me once about a line. He played Bud Frump in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying.
Right.
Many years ago.
Right.
And I played it later. Yeah. And he said that there was a line in that made him nervous every night because he thought it was so funny. Mm. And that is a thing that I have kept with me as just to sort of bolster my own confidence whenever I am afraid of something. Like he was afraid of something. It's okay to be afraid of something. It's actually endowing it with the respect that it deserves because it's such a good line or such a special moment. And this is definitely one of those moments of every night it comes and I'm like, what's it going to be? Is it going to play? Am I going to get it right? Is the timing going to be perfect between the three of us and the audience?
Right. The audience is in the timing too.
Exactly. They are part of it too. And that's the other pin that Jerry Zaks, who I worked with, who's a genius. Yeah. He says that it is not your laugh or her laugh or his laugh. It's everyone in the room's laugh.
That's interesting.
And everyone in the room has to be doing the right thing in order to get the laugh.
That's interesting.
And if you start saying, that's my laugh, or that steps on my laugh, then you're not participating in the same, you're on your own. Yeah. And you're not together.
Yes.
And so that's a perfect example of I have to really be listening to what Nikki says and how she leaves it. Yeah. And Sutton has to really be listening to how I put it out there.
So interesting.
Yeah. When it's a big comedy and there's a lot of big laughs and there's multiple people on stage, some actors try to get in on all of it. Yeah. And this is another great Jerry Zaks thing. He's really good about where the audience needs to be looking. Mm. And it's so important because in film, it's easy to tell the audience where to look. Right. You just cut to the shot you need. Yeah. But on stage, you really want that audience to be looking
where you want them to.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes the audience can look anywhere, but if you're trying, especially with comedy, I did a great play with him called Shows for Days. That was a dramedy kind of, but it had a lot of comedy in it. And we did it at the Mitzi Newhouse, which is a thrust theater. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to tell the audience where to look in the thrust or in the round. Yeah. You have to be really, really careful about how things are staged. And especially when it comes to the funny things happening over here, you're not part of it over here. Yeah. Or what your part is to look over there so that the audience knows to look.
And at that point, you're serving that moment rather than being your own moment.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. Or trying to hone in on it. And like, like trying to like make it or one up it. That's a thing sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like the hat on a hat thing.
Yeah.
It's like, no, the joke was this, and now you're putting this. And, and it might be muddying it, but that's like a constant negotiation.
Right. So I was in something recently and someone asked me, hey, you talk to actors all the time. Well, what did you use from what they said? What I've learned is that this has to be in your blood to do this, particularly on stage. And I said, it's just not in my blood, I don't think. And I said, I could be wrong about that. But when I think about you, like if there's anyone, it's in their blood, it's you. Like when I just saw you on the stage last week and and everything you do, it's in your blood. And to hear that you early on didn't think that you had it in you as an actor and you wanted to be a director.
Right.
I find this fascinating because like I'm saying, I really mean this. Of all of the people maybe that I've ever talked to who is an actor, it's like in the cut and it's pouring out of you. It's you. Do you know what I mean? So tell me about that. And when did you know it was in you?
Well,
and you could do it.
Well, I think, that the moment I know exactly the moment I thought maybe I could do this. And it was when I got a big laugh off of something that I did spontaneously. I was doing there were a couple of moments that I just followed an impulse in the moment and did something spontaneous, didn't do what I had planned to do. And I just like did something spontaneous. And one of them was like I was reading poetry for a speech and debate competition that I thought was very serious. And people started laughing at my read, my line readings, my inflections, my timing. They started laughing with me, not at it, but like not like this guy's a joke, but like they thought that I was trying to be funny, and I wasn't. And in the moment, I kept going, and in my brain I was like, red alert, they're laughing. Something's off. They're laughing, and then that turned into, maybe this should be funny. Could this be funnier? Could you keep making this funny? Can you just keep doing what they like? and so then I sort of like twisted everything in the way that they seemed to like it, and it was a riot. And I won this competition, and that was when I was like, maybe I should try this. And then there was another moment when I was on stage. Earlier than that, I was in a play, and it was one of these. It was the point in that it was a high school play, but so we did 4 performances or something. But I knew it well enough, and I had been doing it. It was in my bones enough that I was able to try something crazy, and it was still within. But it got a huge laugh, and I was like, oh. Wow. And then I was able to recreate it the next night. And that's when I was like, that works. I can do that thing and it works. But I think part of the reason I wanted to be a director and not an actor was because at that point I knew, movie stars and TV stars. That's who I knew as actors. I wasn't really yet I didn't really go to the theater yet. Or if I did, it was like a musical and I was so far away and it just didn't seem like the same kind of thing. But when I was like 9 years old, the movie Batman came out and I had seen Beetlejuice and Tim Burton, and I was aware of this, okay, there's this man named Tim Burton and he made that movie Beetlejuice that I loved. And then he made this movie Batman. And then I think he also made that movie Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And then there's this actor named Michael Keaton who was Beetlejuice, and now he's Batman. And I'm 9 years old, and I'm getting it. I'm like, that man, Tim Burton, he made Pee-wee, he made Beetlejuice, and then he made Batman. And those are so different. Yeah. And yet similar. Like there's definitely something to them that is, I feel the same. And I certainly couldn't have articulated it then, but that's when I was like, I want to be Tim Burton. I want to be him.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Keaton was was a god because he could do Batman and he could do Beetlejuice. And I knew, I had seen other actors who were as funny as Beetlejuice and other actors that were as like brooding and heroic as Batman, but I'd never really put together that the same guy could do both. And around that time, I was also like, suddenly Jack Nicholson was on my radar. And I started to look at his other work and watch what he did. And then I started to understand like, oh, actors are incredible.
Yeah, they're outer worldly.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not accessible.
Yeah, exactly. I could never do that. That's what that is like. But also like at that time, I was like, Jack Nicholson is, once in a generation movie star, like more like a Brando than a Keaton.
Yeah.
And so that seemed like impossible. But what Tim Burton did, I could sort of get my head around. I think because I was like, well, I have action figures, so I can go into my room and I can do that.
Yeah.
With my action figures, I can pull all the, the strings like Tim Burton did.
Yeah.
And so then when I got into like, I would make my friends make movies and I would make my friends come over and play with my action figures. And then I was like, well, there's theater and I know that's sort of like TV and film, so I better do that. And I got into theater, but I was only interested in directing. But we didn't have enough boys to do Fiddler on the Roof, so they made me do
Thank
the
God.
part.
Yes. And then, this time though, were you ever thinking, I wish I was outer worldly like these people?
No.
Interesting.
No, I never thought I wish I could do that. It was always
interesting.
It just seemed impossible.
Yeah.
And there was and then when I was like in junior in high school, I'm from Texas and everything is sort of built for sports. So you would go to middle school for 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and then high school for 9th and 10th grade, and then senior high school for 11th, 12th grade. So when you're a 10th grader, you're the upperclassman and you're not on the bench, basically, in sports. But it also works really well for theater and any extracurricular because you just get more attention and more opportunities. But by the time I got to 11th grade, there was this guy in 12th grade named Michael Washington. Michael Benjamin Washington is his professional name. He's an actor now. He's got something cool coming up. Anyway, we're still friends. Just texted him today. But he was a god to me. He was the greatest actor I'd ever seen in front of me. And I thought, that's an actor. He's an actor, and I can't be an actor because that's what an actor is. And he will be, he will be on Broadway. He will be in movies. He will be in television, and indeed he is. And so then when he graduated, he ended up going to NYU for acting, but he did not get into Juilliard. And so that's when I was like, okay, well, I'm not him.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna stick this track. I'm gonna stick it out. And it wasn't until like the end of my senior year that poetry thing happened. And I thought, well, okay, let's try it.
But then you did get into Juilliard.
I know, I did get into Juilliard.
Right?
But I auditioned on a whim because someone encouraged me to. So I had really crappy grades and I was gonna go to school to become a drama teacher.
Interesting.
Because like being a director turned into being a drama teacher because those people, my drama teachers, were my heroes. And I wanted to be like them, and I thought that's good. And maybe I could even still be an actor sometimes if I'm teaching high school drama and directing plays. And because Hollywood kept seeming so... Hollywood and Broadway did not seem at all possible.
Yeah. Not even in your sphere of like dreaming.
No. It just didn't seem realistic. My parents were really pragmatic and they were always, they had saved every penny to send my sister and me to school. And so they were like, we can send you to any state school you want for 4 years and we'll take care of that. Don't worry. And then I got rejected to all the state schools because my grades were so crappy. And around that same time was this poetry thing where I made everyone laugh. And I said, okay, I don't want to go to those schools.
Yeah.
And this community college in town that had a great theater program had offered me a scholarship and they didn't care about my grades. So I decided to go there, and it was the teacher there that urged me to audition for Juilliard. And I was like, sure, okay, whatever you say, I'll try.
Wow.
But I didn't audition anywhere else. I was going to stay at the community college until I figured it out. And maybe not even go to, maybe just go from community college and go try to be an actor. By that point, I thought maybe I could maybe I could go and be in, TV shows or theater. I didn't really know.
Yeah.
And then, this guy was like, you got to audition for this place. And then when I got in, I was like, oh. And I don't think that because I got to do Juilliard, I'm better than Michael Benjamin Washington.
Right,
I just think that like what they were looking for, then, the kind of actor that they looked for then was more like me than him.
Yeah. Luke Tenney was on the show.
Yes.
And he tells a story about you, and it makes sense to us now hearing you, where you're bringing this like off-bookness into television.
Right.
Where he says, he tells the story of you really influencing on day one of the first season of Shrinking, what Tenney calls this Sorkin-ness of rattling off these words was so impressive to Jason Segel.
Wow.
That he said that he channeled you in another scene that he did.
Wow.
Do you know anything about this?
That rings a bell.
Okay.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
But now it's making sense to us. We heard that story. But now it's making sense that you just had the command of the text. Day one, you're coming in prepared.
Right.
And Jason Segel's like, whoa.
Well, he is an incredibly prepared actor. I think, and so is Harrison Ford, by the way. Actually, at season 2, you didn't see many scripts around Shrinking.
Interesting.
I think because of Jason and Harrison, but Jason, I think it was probably they gave me in my first episode of Shrinking was sort of the second episode. You see me briefly in the first episode, but really in the second episode. And I had a bunch of speeches. They just wrote a bunch of speeches, and they wrote them for they didn't know it was going to be me. I auditioned. It wasn't like they wrote it for me. They wrote a bunch of speeches, and so that was part of my audition. So I kind of knew that, from months earlier. I sort of knew the words and everything, and I had a few scenes in my first episode that I had to drive, and I think it was that idea that like I could come in and like really drive a scene. And it's also, this is again, great writing, easy to remember.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Jason was talking that, and that's the Sorkin-ness thing. It's like, like the words are just so second nature that you can play. You don't have to play thinking of the words, because that's like a lot of like what you were talking about, these actors that are looking for sometimes literally the script is written, and Brando used to write on the back of a coffee cup. He would have his script or whatever, or an earpiece. Yeah, like it's what is, if I'm really coming up with it right now, right? Or and sometimes, I mean, one of my favorite actors is Jeff Goldblum, and he looks like he's making it up. Yeah, yep. In the moment, but that's not always how we talk. Right. And certainly with really great writing, that's not how it's meant to be said. Right. That you're like coming up with a poem it's meant to be like you're channeling something or whatever. I think that might be what he meant. That's really cool that Luke said that story, because I think Luke is an incredible actor.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
Isn't he? What is it like working with all these people? I mean, and I avoided this show for some reason for so long. I don't know why. There's too much stuff going. There's just too much stuff.
Too many shows.
I mean, I like them. I love Jason. I like a movie that he was in that nobody likes called The Friend. I fucking love
The Friend.
The Friend. I
don't know this one.
Highly recommend this movie. It's with Dakota Johnson, Casey Affleck, and him, and it's amazing. I've seen it 3 times. Wow! I tried to champion it. That I recommend. Wow! And he is so amazing in that. I became a bigger fan of him. So why did I avoid the show? I don't know. But when I finally watched it, I was like, this writing is amazing. These people feel settled in, and it feels like there's space for them to do work in it. Like, unlike other shows where it feels like there's not. I don't know what that feeling is coming from. But is that true? Do you feel like there is an allowance for, and I don't know, maybe you don't feel this. I mean, your part's not gigantic.
Yeah.
But
you mean to like to riff on the words?
Well, not that. Maybe I mean like, but I think there is that a little bit, right?
Yeah, that happens. Sure.
I just mean like, I don't know. It feels like what you guys are doing is not imposed on you. It feels like it's you've left room to let these characters live in the way you want them to live. I don't know why it feels that way.
Because it's such good writing. I mean, I do think, yes, there's room to play, and we are able to riff on lines, maybe like try new buttons. Sometimes they'll come in and be like, try this joke instead of that joke, or whatever, this punchline instead of that punchline. But this is a show where like I get the script and I read it through and I have no questions.
Wow.
Like not a single, maybe once in a while, I'm like, what do they think? I wonder what they mean here.
Yeah.
But like I never have to like find a writer and say, is this supposed to be, is this, do you mean this to be this? Or, I think it should be this. Almost. I mean, I don't know if I've ever done that on the show where I say, I think it'd be better if I said it like this.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's happened before where in a rehearsal, we're doing a rehearsal and we're just like doing it. And a writer will be like, he's not saying it as written, but this is better. Like it comes out differently, just like organically. And they're like, actually, let's change it. And they make sure everyone knows that's changed forever. That happens sometimes for me. But the writing is so strong and so tight, and it doesn't feel like a starting place. Sometimes like writing like on TV can feel like, okay, this is what we got. Let's find it. Let's get in there and find it. It sometimes it'll change before we roll camera or by the end of it. But that's more about like the situation, like, oh my God, I didn't know there was a dog here. Let's do this. I mean, or oh, this is so great because the stairs are right here. So go up them, or, that kind of organic thing. And also, I think maybe this is also what you're getting at. The characters are funny.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just that they're making jokes like in a sitcom.
Yeah, that might be it.
They're characters with senses of humor.
Yes.
Like
you don't see that a lot.
Yeah.
We're usually laughing at people, not kind of with them.
Right.
In this way. Yeah.
And you get to watch them enjoy one another and tease each other. I mean, like, think about like Jessica Williams is Gabby. Like that character, Gabby, is hilarious.
Yeah, that's true.
Like would have been the class clown.
That's right.
And so that kind of, and same with
Harrison Ford's character is also funny in a totally different way. If you knew him, you'd be like, that guy's really funny. Yeah. But like not in the way that she is.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. And Harrison's character is funny in the way that Harrison is funny.
Oh yeah.
And I do think more than any of the roles, they've tailored it to him in a really beautiful way.
Yeah.
Because he's usually playing like serious people.
Yeah.
He is like kind of known for playing, but he is an unserious person. Like if you see him on a talk show or in an interview, when he doesn't know anything, they're like, so you're playing the Red Hulk or whatever. And he's like, what is this? What are you talking about? It's like, it's a Captain America. I don't know what that is. Like it's true, but he knows that it's funny. Like he knows you're going to get a kick out of this, but I have no idea. I don't know what the force is.
Yeah. He's playing up the old guy.
Yes.
Thing,
he plays up that like crotchety old guy, but the truth is he loves it.
Yeah.
He loves going to work. He loves acting. He loves the crew so much. And this is he loves being cranky. He loves putting on I have never seen him actually cranky.
That's amazing.
It's always like an act.
Yeah.
I've seen him tired.
Yeah.
But I've never seen him actually like in a bad mood. I've seen him be hard on himself. But he is like a pretend crank. And that's what the character is too.
And he does it well.
I mean, the character's kind of a pretend crank. He really does love all these people in his life, even though he pretends like he doesn't want them around.
Yeah. What is it like to be a true theater lover who, partly to pay the bills, does amazing, thank God, television like this. But you know what I mean? When you have this head of, and being in a show like you're in right now, and like being used to it, and then having to go on a set like that and adjust for that.
Yeah.
What is that like?
Yeah, it's like a recalibration kind of.
Yeah.
And this has been a weird couple of years because I was doing a play when I got Shrinking, doing a big, comedy about William Shakespeare. I was playing William Shakespeare, and I had a big beard. That's why I have a beard in Shrinking, because I had a beard when I auditioned. They were like, "We like the beard. You got the job." And I was like, "Great." To go from like that, which I did that, and then we did Shrinking, and then I went back to that play again. We did that play again, and then I did Spamalot, which was sort of in the same vein as that play, kind of big British, and then back to Shrinking.
Wow.
And then
this.
And then sorry. Then did Shrinking, then did Mattress, then did Shakespeare, then did Mattress. Oh, sorry, Shakespeare, Spamalot, then Mattress, then back to Shrinking, then back to Mattress.
Oh, yeah.
Like going from like big, broad musical comedy to comedy, but like human.
Yeah.
Like human comedy has been like, I am keeping my eyes wide open. And I am very, very emotionally prepared for the fact that eventually this will not be my life. I won't be able to go from a musical comedy or a big, broad language comedy to a heartfelt, emotional, human comedy on television where you're working with, actual movie stars. Like that is like a dream I didn't know I had.
Yeah.
When I got out of school, my dreams were, I'm going to go do Shakespeare in the regions, or maybe someday I'll get a sitcom. Like that I would be going from, set to stage like this just didn't even occur to me that it could be possible. And I am, right now I feel like I've got these plates spinning and I'm just trying to keep them that way.
Yeah.
But that's more like on the emotional side, how I deal with it. It's just like keep my eyes open and never suck. Always be good. But the actual literal recalibration is, I think, made much easier by the quality of the writing. And that's I'm talking about like doing Monty Python in Spamalot.
Yeah.
That's perfect writing. And then going to the Shrinking writing, Bill Lawrence and Brett Goldstein and our amazing writing staff. And then Once Upon a Mattress is written by Amy Sherman Palladino and some of the, early, Marshall Barrett and some of the other book writers from the earlier versions of the show. Like it really is back to the writing. And when I think about Mattress, which we've now been doing for quite a while, and we did an earlier incarnation at City Center in February, a lot of the things that I found to play that character, I found in the first read through, we tried it for the very first time, things that just came out, and the first performance. So like, especially in a comedy, I think you learn more the first performance than the whole time you're in rehearsal.
That's huge.
You learn more then that night being out there on the tightrope with your co-stars than you did the whole 4 weeks leading up to it. And in some ways, a first read through is like a performance because people are laughing.
Right.
Everyone's like there, and you're sort of...
It's in the air.
It's in the air, yeah. And everyone's nervous, just like in the first performance.
Yeah.
Everyone's nervous, including the audience. And, you read through it with the creative team and everyone, the staff of the theater are all there, and the producers, and then the whole cast, and everyone's hearing it for the first time, and everyone's nervous, and everyone's excited, and it's pure.
Yeah.
You try something, it gets a laugh, like, okay, well, that's pure.
Yeah.
That's pretty real. Because then you get into rehearsal, and the things that are really getting laughs are what's new or different or a mistake.
Right.
Like you get in that period in rehearsal where the people in the rehearsal room are laughing at things that an audience will never laugh at.
Right.
We call it a rehearsal laugh.
Right. And you can't take that you can't put any weight to that.
Yeah.
The laughter of that.
And you have to keep reminding yourself, there's stuff in this, and this is the cool thing about remounting a show, like we did with Spamalot and we did with Once Upon a Mattress. We did earlier productions and then we do them again. Like you can sort of trust, oh no, I know that's funny. I'm not going to change it. Just because no one's laughing in rehearsal doesn't mean the audience won't laugh. You got to remember that when we get in front of the audience, they don't know this.
Yeah.
They don't know the story. They don't know what's going to happen. Everyone in this room does, and they're being supportive and doing everything they can, but you can't fake a laugh forever.
Right.
You can't fake laugh at something forever.
Right. I do not take it lightly when somebody shows up on this show on a performance day. Okay? You're showing up on this show, talking to me, and you go on stage later tonight. I mean, I can't even imagine this. I wouldn't be doing anything. I'd wake up and I would make sure no one was around until I have to go to the theater.
Yeah.
I wouldn't interact with people or do human things. I would not do that. I would not be a human. Yeah. I wouldn't have a life. So I appreciate it. Having said that, I'd love to know what your pre-show ritual is. And has it changed? And is it different for a musical?
I think it changes every show. Every show is a little bit different. And it's definitely different for a musical. I am not a trained singer, or a natural singer, or a natural dancer. But I weaseled my way into a few musicals, and now they cast me, and now they think of me for them, which is awesome, and I love it. But I am, and the kind of singing I'm doing, it's not that challenging. Mm-hmm. I always think when people say, "Are you a singer?" I always think like a real singer can do the national anthem. Yeah. And I definitely cannot. So yes, I sing in musicals. I have been on Broadway singing, but I would never sing the national anthem. And I wouldn't even really trust myself to do an act. Whenever they say, "Will you come and sing a song at this gala?" I'm terrified, and usually don't do it because it's such a scary prospect. But so yes, there's a lot of different stuff when it comes to a musical. I find something that's very important before going on stage, and I'm often in comedies, but even in a drama, it's very important to be in a really good headspace, emotionally, by the time you go on stage. And sometimes that's hard to deal with. Right. Because sometimes you've had a bad day, or there's something going on, or the world. Yeah.
That's why I would not do any of that.
Right.
I wouldn't live in the world.
Right, because who knows what the world could bring to you. Yes, exactly. And there is a point, I think of it sometimes as like a reset. Sometimes I need a reset. Like today, I try not to do anything that's workish on the day off. So yesterday I had one little call that I had to do, but mostly I was just chilling. Yeah. No work. I don't go to the gym. I eat whatever I want. And sleep or don't or whatever. But on a show day, I'm really careful about what I eat. Mm-hmm.
This is just voice-wise or mental?
This is both. It's body,
That's
voice.
What I meant. I mean, I didn't mean I meant, yeah. But mental too, and body.
Mental too, because I have a thing, if my stomach isn't if my stomach is doing anything, it messes up my brain. I get very distracted. If I'm burping up garlic, I'm very distracted. If I'm like maybe gonna need to, if there's something going on in my system. So if I eat something like I'll take any risk. I'll eat anything on a day off. But if I have a show later, I'm very careful what I'm eating. And even on days when I'm like, I think I could try something different, it's messed me up. And then I'm like thinking about the food while I'm on stage, which is really weird. And maybe maybe I need to like talk to somebody about this. Maybe it is a little bit unhealthy, but I eat the same thing over and over. I have the same, and I have this meal that I started doing it during Spamalot. It's like a ramen thing. It's really plain, and I eat it with hot sauce, and it's very filling, noodles and chicken, and it fills me up, and it's kind of the only thing that I'll eat on a 2-show day. It's different on a 1-show day, but like between shows, the 2-show day is crazy because you do the whole thing pretty early, 1:00.
Yeah.
We do our matinees on 2-show days, and then a few hours later we do it again. And I try to sleep. I try not to talk too much.
Yeah.
And then I have to eat a lot in order to do the show again. And it's this big noodle thing that I eat. I get it from the same place, and it's the same thing. And it's boring. And it's very plain, but I don't taste it later. And I have plenty of energy. One day I was like, I can't do the noodles anymore. I'm going to order chicken. And there's a chicken place that I used to trust, but they didn't have what I wanted, so I tried a different chicken place, and it was a huge mistake.
Yeah. You can't take risks.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
Take risks.
Yeah.
But I used to be kind of a monk, and I would like not do anything. Everything was in service of the play, and I still think everything is in service of the play. But part of that is like living your life, and not being afraid to like, go to the doctor or go to the grocery store or, do an interview or do several interviews. I'm actually I put a bunch on this day. Like I have a few interviews today. I think that can be really good. And then after I'm done, I'll probably go to sleep for a little while and reset and then wake up and do the show. Wake up, maybe go to the gym, eat something super filling and healthy and then go do the show.
But can you go to sleep when you want to?
Kind of, yeah.
That's great.
I can kind of go to sleep anytime. Not for long. These are like 10-minute naps, usually.
So much of what you do that's funny is your body. It's physical comedy. I mean, even on Shrinking, it's physical comedy, it feels like. Having just said what you just said, like, do you have to actually take care of your body? I mean, obviously you do. I mean, because it's your instrument as an actor. But I'm talking about specifically in terms of what I'm talking about for what you have to do later tonight, comedy-wise. I mean, just little slight things. I'm talking about like a double take with your body. If you're not fluid, right? Doesn't it affect things?
Yeah, you could hurt yourself.
Yeah,
you could. Yeah, and I have. I've had some pretty serious injuries. I've had to have surgeries, and I go to the gym basically every day. There's a show, and that doesn't mean I'm like pumping.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's mostly like I'm listening to my body and I'm thinking, what do I need? This show, I do a lot of lower body stuff because there's a lot of stillness in this show, and then I have to do like some crazy stuff. Like I do a lot of just standing there still, and then a lot of like running really fast, quickly, like running upstairs or like I climb up those stairs at one point, or then we have that crazy weird dance number, the Spanish Panic.
Yeah.
And then I have to, right after that, sing that big comedy number.
Yeah.
I'm in love with a girl named Fred, which is a lot of lyrics and a lot of energy, and I'm already out of breath from doing the Spanish Panic.
Right.
And so I do have a singing teacher. So I said I wasn't trained in singing, but I do have a singing teacher, and she is amazing, and she's gotten me to be able to do what I can do. But she talks a lot about like you can't be out of breath when you're singing. So then it's like, okay, your legs have to plant, and that helps you. And so then I have to I have some tumbling, and then I had to carry Sutton at one point. And so and that's really legs. It's all legs. So more than I've ever had before, I've been like working on legs and working on cardio. Sometimes I don't do a lot of cardio because I feel like I'm in a musical. Why do I need to do cardio? Or I'm in a play. Why do I need to do cardio? Or I bike a lot. But in this, the breath. So it's like, I need to like do cardio. And I need to, so I get on the elliptical for half an hour or something like that. But a lot of it's really just stretching, a little bit of weight training, but it's mostly just like wake my physical body up. On 2 show days, Sutton leads a warm-up. And I always go, partially because I know it's helpful, but also because I need to know where she's at.
Yeah.
Because I have to do a lot with her.
Yeah.
And I need to be able to keep up with her.
Interesting. Yeah.
And she teaches like a dance aerobics class. That's like her side hustle. She actually does that. And so that's kind of what she does with us on 2 show days for whoever, like ushers, crew, cast. But I try to go every time. I think I've gone every time. I try to be there every time because I'd like to do what she does. Yeah. Because I want to be able to keep up with her and support her.
Yeah. I am thinking about one of my dreams is to do this documentary where I go back to some of the people that have been on this show that had this one role that they did and talk to them and then get them around each other to talk to each other about playing this one role that you played. Can you guess what it is?
Is it Hamlet?
Yes. I mean, wouldn't that be cool?
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
so
and
cool.
there's so many things to talk about, right? Because it's the iconic role.
Yes.
And
so cool.
Just hearing people talk about certain lines and like, right? Wouldn't it be a multi-part documentary? We would travel and then we would go. I mean, can you be my producer? Can we do this? I'm not going to. I'm going to stay out of it. I'm just going to facilitate it. Well, who the hell wants to hear me? But
you ask really interesting questions.
But
so
I'll throw that in every once in a while. But let them, you know what I mean? Let them go.
Well, and anybody who's played Hamlet will go.
Right? And they would want...
We'll talk.
They'll have things to say to each... Right? There's so many things, right?
Absolutely.
Was that something that you're like, I have to do this because it's going to be a time when I can't do it at a certain age?
Sure.
Was it something like that? Or,
yes.
And
yes.
Was this... Where were you in your appreciation of Shakespeare at that moment?
When I finished Juilliard, all I wanted to do was Shakespeare. I had done a little bit of Shakespeare before. We did Midsummer Night's Dream in high school, and that was my first time thinking, oh, this is great. Because you read Romeo and Juliet, read the Scottish play in high school, and it's a drag. Because you're in English class, and it's not meant to be read anyway. It's meant to be heard or spoken. And you shouldn't. I mean, it's fun to sit and read Shakespeare if you understand what it feels like to see it, hear it, or say it.
Right.
But just to sit down and read it, especially when you don't have a frame of reference, it's really too bad, because I think Shakespeare is something anyone can enjoy if exposed in the correct way. And the way that we're exposed in English class is the absolute worst way.
Yeah.
It's basically setting Shakespeare up to fail, which is a shame. But when I got out of school, I really excelled at Shakespeare. We did it every year, and it just fit me like a glove. And I won there's a prize at Juilliard called the John Houseman Prize, which is given to one student a year, and it's really about who do they believe will have a career in the classics. And I got it in our class. So I was like, great, I'm gonna get out of school and I'm gonna do nothing but Shakespeare. And I was happy with that. But it didn't happen. It took a little while before I got one. I played Mercutio in DC. I got that one. But our teacher at Juilliard, Michael Kahn, ran the Shakespeare Theater in Washington, DC. And he didn't hire me. And they didn't hire me. And I don't think, I did Romeo and Juliet in DC at a different theater. And I kept thinking, well, eventually he'll hire me. He gave me the Houseman. He'll hire me. And he didn't.
Wow.
And but I was always chasing Shakespeare. I did some Shakespeare in San Diego, but I really thought when I got out of school, I thought maybe I could just do this. Maybe I could just go from Shakespeare play to Shakespeare play, and that would be my life. Never done Shakespeare in the Park.
That's kind of crazy.
I've tried.
Wow.
I've tried.
What? But now, come on.
No. I have tried. I can't get arrested
insane.
there. They did ask me to do one play. That one time I got asked to do it, and I wasn't able to do it. And then the pandemic happened, and they didn't end up doing it at all. But that wasn't even like, that was kind of like a consolation prize, because I was trying to pitch them. I was working at the Public, and I was like, I want to do Shakespeare. What about this? And they're like, oh, we're already doing that with this other actor. And I was like, oh, well, can I play this part? And they're like, okay. It was like kind of a consolation, but so they did, anyway. I felt like I was always chasing Shakespeare, and there came a point where I was like, well, I don't know when I'll do it again. Wow. It had been a long time. There wasn't a lot of opportunity. Shakespeare in New York is kind of a different thing. You kind of have to have a take. You gotta have to reinvent it.
Right.
You can't really just do a Shakespeare play. It's gotta be, or a big star, like you can't just, do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't really happen here. And I was really happy with doing theater in New York, and I thought, well, we'll see. And Michael Kahn, who was my teacher at Juilliard, and a friend. We had become friends. He was my partner's teacher too, and we became like friends. And he would come see me and stuff. And in fact, that one person play I was talking about, he produced it in DC with me, and it became the beginnings of a tour. I did a tour, and we got to do it in DC. And I played in their cool, beautiful, big theater, this solo comedy that had a lot of direct address. And it was a big hit for them. And then a few years later, he came to see me in this play, this little play called Homos, or Everyone in America, that played at the Labyrinth, that I did with Robin DeJesus. And Michael Kahn came to see that. And in the lobby, after that, he said, I want to do Hamlet. And I want it to be my last Shakespeare ever.
Wow.
And I was like, what? And I think he never said this, but I think he saw me do the solo comedy that was a lot of direct address, and I had the audience in the palm of my hand. And then he saw me do Homos, which was funny but serious, and an incredibly intelligent character. I played a character that was very intelligent and very loquacious. And I think it was those two.
Put them together.
Yeah, he was like, he can play the smart guy, and he can hold the audience.
Yep.
And it's a great play. And it's such a good role. All the roles are good.
Yeah, right.
It's such a, and you can never really figure it out.
Right.
That's what's so great.
Right.
So you never really know what Gertrude's thinking.
Right.
At the end, you'll never really know. You got to make a choice, but you'll never really know.
Right.
You'll never really know if Hamlet actually goes mad or doesn't.
Yeah.
You'll never really know if that ghost is real or a figment of,
Right.
It's pretty cool that way. I mean, we made choices.
Yeah.
And if I did it again, I might make different choices.
Yeah. Well, how long was it when he said that to when it happened?
Okay, good question. So I know that play was in the fall of 2016 because we had to do it the day after that election.
Oh, okay.
And then I think it was a year later. That we did it.
When you sit down and you're like, all right, I've read this play, seen it done. Now I'm actually going to be committing this to memory and actually doing it. I mean, that must have been so exciting as a Shakespeare lover.
Yeah.
And just being like, okay, this is now, I get to not approach these actual words in a whole different way now because they got to come in my body.
Right. And I had done scenes. I had worked on monologues. So I already had done, there was a great young director named Alex Lippard who we would get together and work on it, bring in other actors. So I spent a lot of time with the play. And then I played Horatio in a production with Hamish Linklater as Hamlet, who was a genius and literally born to play it. His mother was Kristen Linklater.
Yeah.
So he grew up at Shakespeare and Company in the Berkshires. So born to play it, and amazing. And very funny. And so as Horatio, who is not funny, but getting to be his Horatio and watch his process and watch him do it, that was when I was like, oh, I think I might have something to say as Hamlet, because I think it's not unlike what he's saying, but also with all the things. So he kind of opened a door for me.
Yeah.
His take on Hamlet kind of opened a door for me that he can have humor, and that the humor is going to put the audience at ease.
Yes.
Not because they like the guy, but because they're following it. That's the hardest part about doing Shakespeare and that's what audiences are laughing about. They're laughing not because it's necessarily funny, but because they're getting it.
Yeah.
They're actually following what's happening. It's not that we're clowns. I didn't play Hamlet like a clown. Right. Hamish didn't play him like a clown, or even like someone with a sense of humor necessarily, like in Shrinking. It's just that the audience is laughing because they actually know what's happening.
Right.
They walk in assuming they're not going to be able to follow it.
Right.
Most audiences walk into Shakespeare thinking, this is going to be work.
Yes.
Hopefully I'm going to get this.
Yes.
And if you can make them laugh, then they're following it.
Yeah.
And if you infuse it with a modern sensibility, like a modern psychology, it holds. Shakespeare holds that. That's why we're still doing it, is that he understood modern psychology before it existed, before Freud. And the characters talk about their emotions in a way that we're in therapy to figure out. They understand why they're feeling a certain way and what it was that brought them to that, and they're telling you about it. And so it's still entirely relatable.
Yeah.
And especially in the soliloquies, it's a moment for the character to say this to the audience. This is what I'm going through, and I know you understand because you go through it too.
Yes.
Because we're afraid of death, or because we love someone who doesn't love us, or we love someone we're not allowed to love, or
these things ain't gonna go away.
Yeah, right. Or exactly. It's not gonna go away. It's 400 years later, and it's still we're still dealing with it. So I think that's that's why people love it so much.
Yeah.
And so Michael Kahn finally hired me. And he basically was like, I want to do your Hamlet. And was an incredible guide, but also gave me great space and leeway. And he wanted it to be funny. And, he said, I think when you come into the play within the play and you're pretending to be mad, or maybe you've gone mad, what if you put on a jester costume? I'm like, wow, really? You want me to going through all the players' racks, pull out a jester costume, and then you wear that? That's a big, that's one of the things he said to me before we started rehearsal.
Wow, yeah.
So like, okay, that's the guy we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then I had spent, a couple of years doing that solo play. So anytime I'd come down to do a soliloquy, it was not scary.
That's amazing.
I was like, I know how to do this.
Oh.
I know how to talk to all of you at one time.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people are afraid of that in Shakespeare. They're afraid, but you watch Mark Rylance do Shakespeare, it's all for the audience.
Yeah.
Everything is for them. Or you go to the Globe in London, it's all for them. They are included in every single moment.
And you got to imagine that must have been what it was like, right?
That would have been, right? Because there was no lights. They weren't in the dark. Right. It was the middle of the day.
Yeah.
The audience was right there. They were talking.
Yeah.
They were right there.
Yeah.
So they're included in every single thing. I mean, I saw Mark Rylance play Iago. He never looked away from us. We were always.
That's funny.
He was always. Everything was for.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah.
And he was hilarious.
Yeah. See that? As Iago.
That's
funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. This is an unfair question as we end. If I give you the keys, I'm giving you the keys to Broadway. You are the king of Broadway. You can, with those keys, anything can be mounted and you are the star of it. What are you doing?
How dare you?
Yeah.
Well, I think...
There's no, by the way, let me lay this out. There's nothing, you're not worrying about anything. You're not trying to do something that's going to be a hit. You have no, this is a complete fantasy. You're not, don't use that side of your brain. What do you want to do?
It's hard not to imagine like a bucket list role because that's where my mind first goes. And at this point, I've been able to play a lot of the roles on the bucket list, and even some that I didn't know should have been on it to begin with. But I think that I would mount a play, and I don't know that I have the title, and maybe it hasn't been written yet, but it would be a play that is side-splittingly funny and about all of us. That you would, something that will make everyone happy and feel like they're not alone. And I don't think that's Hamlet.
Right. It's not, that's actually not any of the great plays that we know.
Right, because they all tell you are alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Probably the one that's come close. I mean, I feel like I've had this sensation with Torch Song, with Buyer and Seller, the solo play, where it is just hysterical. And then like really like raw, open heart. But then leaves you with hope and joy and love.
Yeah.
I think a play that can go to all those places. And, I don't know, maybe it's a Shakespeare play, maybe it's, like, maybe it is like a Midsummer Night's Dream kind of a thing, a version of that where like you really could bring kids and, you really could show the devastation of what it is to be human. And yet, hold hands at the end and sing together. But to me, I think that's what like Broadway, when you're talking about Broadway, like it needs to participate in the conversation of the world.
Yes.
Which could be an escape, like Once Upon a Mattress. Could be a chance, like, I think Once Upon a Mattress is escape. You get to come in and leave your brain at the door. But I also think it's an opportunity to share fellowship with grandma and baby.
Yes.
Like you can go with anybody and everybody, and the more, the bigger the age discrepancy in the theater, the better the show is. I find the more kids there are, the more old people there are, the more like variety, the better the show is, because the old people love listening to the kids, and the kids love hearing the adults laugh at stuff that they don't get. They love that.
Yeah.
So like that's its purpose today in this moment. Just like a play like Oslo, which I thought was hilarious, devastating, and very moving, even though it ultimately doesn't succeed. The point of that play, the mission of the character of that play isn't ultimately successful. It's so thrilling to see what's possible and to see people, not go it alone, but work together. Torch Song, the climax of Torch Song is a knockdown, drag-out fight between a gay son and his homophobic mother. And when she leaves, he's left alone, but he still loves her. She still loves him. He has other people that he loves, and he's going to be okay. And it's hard and sad, but also very beautiful because he doesn't give up, But you're right. The great American plays, they don't have that. Yeah, they're all real rough.
But you have given a task to the writers listening. I think it's not a it's not a bad idea to say it like this. You haven't said anything that is constricting. It's an inspiring thing to want to see, and I can imagine it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be about. It's not about what it's about. It's about what it does, like you're saying, to us, and it's possible. I think to happen on the stage.
Yeah.
I want to see it.
I know. I want it to be something new. I think.
Yeah.
I want it to be something new. I mean, I love all these old plays.
Yeah.
Glass Menagerie is top of my bucket list. But do I want it to do we need another Glass Menagerie on Broadway? No, I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think so. I think, and I'd rather do. That was another cool thing about doing Hamlet was we didn't have to do it. We weren't doing it in New York. We didn't have to change. We didn't have to reinvent it. Mm-hmm. We could do our version. Yeah, it was modern. We had a gun. Cell phones, things like that. But it wasn't deconstructed.
Yeah.
Or
yes.
Because
you don't have to with that.
No.
Right?
But we do. And in New York, it feels like
either
it's Denzel's giving his Othello.
Yeah.
And we're going to support that.
Yeah.
Or, you go to see. And I loved, but the public theater does Hamlet with dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's great. It's awesome. But
yeah.
It's dirt, and at the end of, when Ophelia and Polonius die, they bury themselves, and then they wake up as the gravediggers. Brilliant. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
But
we're doing a disservice to the young people too of this city by not giving them the play, right? We're giving them a deconstruction. Yeah, because we're tired. We want a new way to look at this. But what about the people that have never looked at it?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're getting that in other cities.
Exactly.
That's not okay. That's not okay.
That's a really great way to put it. I remember when we did Romeo and Juliet in DC. DC is a great place to go do theater. I will go back anytime because because there's something about the people in DC. They're really competitive, and they want every experience they have to be awesome.
Yeah.
So they walk in to the theater and they're like, all right, what do we got here? This is my life right now.
Yeah.
And in New York, theater goers see 3 shows a week.
Right.
Sometimes. And so it's what's wrong with this one?
Yeah. What are you going to show me today?
That I haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
And so there's a
different energy.
You really have to surprise people in New York.
Yeah.
And in a way that you don't. I feel like, and I remember we did Romeo and Juliet in DC, and we played the first act like a romantic comedy, which it is. Mm-hmm. It is a romantic comedy. Yes, the two you can argue that the Montagues and Capulets come to blows and it's bloody and it's really, really, really violent. You can say that, but you can also say that they just don't like each other and you can't marry each other. And then Mercutio dies.
Yeah.
And we did it for students and they were devastated when Mercutio died.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Screaming, sobbing.
Isn't that amazing? Wow.
And you gotta imagine they must have known on some level. They must have been told ahead of time or read the script, but maybe they didn't. And they were shocked when I died. Wow. And it was I'll never forget it.
Wow.
Hearing the kids scream when I died.
Wow. When you on your end of that, of actually being in it and can experience that as theater working, how can you not believe in it?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, I know. It is one of those things was when I'm doing theater and, when a child screams out, "You passed," when we find out that Winifred couldn't sleep on the bed with the pee underneath it.
Yeah.
When a child will scream out, "You passed," that means that they understood everything.
Yeah.
They followed the whole thing. And it is, how can we ever do anything but theater?
Yeah.
It does feel that way. It does sort of feel, I'm a goofball, and you know, you'll catch me in 6 months, and hopefully we'll be back at shrinking, and I'll say the exact same thing about doing television and about like, God, this is like a moment, and we just capture it. You guys, we just saw Harrison Ford give a speech like he's never. I mean, it's like it'll happen. But because I'm just so lucky to have all of this bounty of work, but yeah, the theater thing, it's real. Like, you are really, and I think one of the other things that's like really special about Mattresses, you can tell when you watch it that we're not doing the same thing we did last night.
Yeah.
Some of it is, you know, we're basically hitting the same beats, but like, I think the audience can tell that they're seeing something special.
Yes.
And not the same thing that the audience will see tomorrow.
Yes.
And that is not easy to do, because you really have to let go and trust that something funny will happen. We even had the other night, we had an off-the-wall, bonkers, silly, wonderful night where everyone was just like, so, whoa, you came up with that? You came up with that? Look at you. Where'd you get that? That was great. Yeah. And we come off stage and we're like, where did that come from? And it was so exciting that it was Friday night, and on Saturday afternoon, we were all like looking around, like nervous. Because how do you, and we all, without really discussing it, we all kind of, it was still a great show. Audience loved it. Still had some new stuff in it, but nobody was like, everybody, it's a murderer's row of musical comedy geniuses, and nobody tried to recreate it. And about halfway through the show, there's a moment where Sutton and I check in off stage, and I was like, so we're just like, we're not, you're doing it too, right? she's like, yeah, I was too nervous. I was too nervous to try to do that again. So I'm just trying to like, listen and respond and tell the truth and ground myself. And
Isn't that exciting?
Oh, it's so exciting. And that's not something you get in TV and film. What's cool is like there is a moment when you're doing it where it clicks and you think, oh, that's it. Oh, that was cool. Yeah. And then you move on. Yeah. And sometimes you finish a scene and you're like, I'm really gonna miss this. Happens a lot in shrinking, where you finish a scene and it's like, gosh, I'm not gonna do that again, huh? I remember on Ugly Betty. On Ugly Betty, there was a scene that America and I had that was so fun and so funny that when we finished and everyone moved on and moved to another part of the set, we did it again, just the two of us.
That's beautiful.
We said, you want to do it one more time?
Oh my God, that's
Nobody was around. We just did it one more time.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. I've never heard of anything like that. That's beautiful.
It was really cool. It was really special.
Michael Urie, I just spent a lot of time with you, and it feels like it's not enough. Oh. Okay? I could tell we haven't scraped even the middle of this barrel of you. Am I right?
You're right. I mean, I think you might be right.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
It's such a pleasure.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.